Metro Show. I'm your host, Ron Halvorson, as always. And look who we got this week. It's the lovely and talented Candye Kane and son. Well, this was a surprise. We weren't expecting him. How you doing?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. We tried a year ago. Didn't quite work out. We finally got you. You're back at the zoo, as I understand it, right?
Yes.
Now, is that all this week, or?
It's tomorrow night and Thursday night. So, what's tomorrow? The 19th and 20th?
20th and 21st,
20th
I
and
think.
21st.
Okay. But for just 2 shows.
Lincoln for 2 shows, and then I'll be in Omaha on Friday. I think it's the 22nd or 23rd for the riverboat cruise.
For the cruise, yeah, the blues cruise, as they call it, or that's what we call it anyways, blues cruise. Cool. Tell us first, now jump back in your past ways. Where are you from originally?
Well, originally I'm from East Los Angeles. I grew up in the area where all the gang violence happens.
Oh, wonderful.
A lot of tough people come from that neighborhood, including me. I moved to San Diego in 1986, and that's where Evan grew up and where my other son grew up. I wanted to get them out of the ghetto, and although it certainly gave me a lot of character, I think San Diego was a more reasonable place to raise kids. So both my kids grew up surfers instead of gangsters. And
there you go. That's a much better choice to be
Uh-huh.
surfers than gangsters. I agree with that.
Yes.
How did we get into the blues? How did we get into the music?
Well, actually, I grew up being a singer. I mean, I was always a singer. I sang as a little girl. I knew that I could sing well from singing with my parents' record collection. And my dad was kind of a beatnik musician. He played guitar and flute. And I took flute lessons in elementary school, and I also took clarinet lessons.
Oh, wow.
But I wasn't really a great wind instrument player, and I didn't want to practice. I was a good singer, and that's what I was best at. So I did a lot of amateur shows and tried out for a lot of talent shows, but by the time I was in seventh grade, I had, if you'll forgive the term, huge knockers. And so
well, I won't forgive the term. That's fine.
Every audition that I did, I was always getting the part of the grandma. Oh, you'll be great for the grandma part, you know. And they'd put a gray wig and glasses on me, and meanwhile the young skinny blonde would get the ingenue part. And so I kind of got discouraged from the music business as quickly as I had become inspired by it. I did the Gong Show, I did the Ted Mack Amateur Hour, and a lot of other amateur shows, and I got a music scholarship when I was 14 to USC Music Conservatory. It was sort of a low-budget music program for poor kids, which I qualified as. And so my teacher at the USC Music Conservatory really wanted me to be an opera singer, and that's what they were training me for. I had a 5-octave range, and I was really learning a lot of like Italian and German arias, but I didn't want to be an opera singer. I was inspired by the music I heard in my parents' house and the music that I heard on the radio, which was a combination of Judy Garland and Patsy Cline to, Bobby Darin and Connie Stevens. So it was I wasn't into opera at all, and eventually I dropped out of that music program, and then consequently I became pregnant when I was 16, and I gave birth to Evan, who is right now, and so that put my musical career on hold too. I mean, frankly, there weren't a lot of people coming back to East LA and saying that I could be a big star, and so it took a long time for me to eventually end back up in music as a full-time career. And the blues, actually, I mean, you asked how did I come to the blues. I was really more of a country singer in the beginning. I can yodel, and I loved singing country. I loved Kitty Wells and the Carter Family.
Now, the blues, we're talking, the blues that you do, is it traditional, or is it just all across the board? Or?
Well, I think that, people hear the term the blues and they automatically think about like slow, kind of work song types of blues, or a guy with an acoustic guitar, I do some stuff like that. I do a couple of Big Bill Broonzy songs. My guitar player is accomplished at that kind of country blues stuff. But it's more like jump blues. We're really a jump blues band, and I do a lot of songs that have sort of messages in them. They're like political songs, but they're with a blues, groove. I say they're political, although it's really not political necessarily. It's more, I call them fat glorification songs. I mean, I have a song called You Need a Great Big Woman to Show You How to Love, a song called Fit, Fat, and Fine 200 Pounds of Fun, songs that are sort of empowerment songs, I guess. And, you know, I don't do it because I think that being fat is necessarily better than being thin, although I'm sure a lot of people are jealous of my ample body. But I do it because I think that big women are underrepresented in our culture, and I never saw big women on the cover of, you know, Cosmo or Vanity Fair. So in my own way, I'm sort of the cheerleader for large-sized people in general. And I think that you know, it's there's a lot of cultural support for skinny people, but big people don't get that kind of support in our culture. And so every time I sing a song about being big and beautiful, it's a life affirmation for me, as well as bringing in the audience and making them feel better. I mean, let's face it, everyone has issues about their body. Even if you're a thin person, you know, everybody thinks they have too much in the right place and not enough in the wrong place, and maybe what used to be in one place has shifted to a different place. It's something that happens with age. But all of us have body issues, and so if I can, through music, make people relax a little bit about their bodies, and I think I'm a real you know, good person to do this, because my body has affected my life in many, many ways, you know, financially, and early on in my career, as I said, getting cast as the grandma instead of the skinny debutante. I mean, those were early on messages to me that my body was different and not maybe a mainstream regular body. So I really try to use the music to make people feel better, and accidentally it makes me feel better too.
Well, good. How many shows do you think you do in a year?
Probably 200. I probably play 250 shows a year. Probably only about 200 of them are on the road. This year particularly, I'm working quite a lot harder, because I have a new CD out and I need to, you know, sell some CDs.
Sure.
It's getting harder, the live music business. I'd like to tell anyone, if there is anyone listening to this show, that
well, I hope they got it.
well, you know, I mean, it's not in the morning. I'm a musician. I'm never open to that. But
never thought about
I'm hoping that people will listen, and maybe people who don't ordinarily go out to bars will take a chance and come and see my show, because it's really an important time to support live music. People don't think they're doing a big political service by supporting live music, but a guy like you having a show that supports live musicians and people that come out to bars and support live music, now more than ever it's important. I know this has sort of been like the broken record of musicians, but especially with the internet that threatens a lot of you know, the livelihood of musicians. I mean, people buy so much and download so much from the internet for free that people aren't supporting the record sales the way they used to. And also shows like American Idol. I love watching American Idol, and I love seeing people get up there and sing, because I think it's great for their soul and great for their self-esteem. But when somebody can be taken and given coaching lessons and have great songwriters write them perfect songs and have everything orchestrated for them in a perfect way, have somebody do all their makeup, do all their clothes, put them on television and turn them into a star, it really makes it harder for people who are writing their own music and driving 500 miles to get to the gig and playing music and selling CDs. I mean, it's a tough job, and so we couldn't do it without the support of your viewers and people like you who are willing to, you know, give some airtime to musicians.
Well, we try. We do what we can. That's all. Oh, thank you so much, Debbie. I appreciate that. We've been trying for, what, 4 years now? And hopefully people are out there watching.
Well, it's a public service. I mean, you know, the live music art will die if people don't get up away from their computers and go and see the music.
Exactly.
You don't have to stay all night. You don't have to drink. You can, you know, drink water if you want. But just to go and be a body and support it and clap as loud as you can and be a part of an event like that is really important and helps perpetuate art. That's why it's so wonderful to play in Europe. I mean, I love the U.S. I mean, I'm proud to be an American, and I'm really glad to tour the U.S. But in Europe, it's really different. I mean, we were playing the other night in Springfield, Illinois, and there were some kids staying in the hotel. We played at the Hilton up at the top. They have a jazz club there. And some of the kids that were on the softball team wanted to come into the club, these girls. And I really wanted those girls to come into that club, and they wouldn't let them in. And because it was a 21 and over bar. And I just think that's a real mistake, because those girls, some of them were kind of hippie girls, you know. I don't mean hippie from the 60s. I mean, some of them had some hips on them, and some of them had some big thighs. And I think these are girls who would have really benefited from hearing
sure.
that it's okay to be big and sexy and provocative, and you don't have to necessarily be a size 7 to do that.
Right.
But they were disallowed from entrance because we're in America. And in Europe, not only are kids allowed to come into live music venues and see live music, but it's more of a whole family experience. You get like grandmothers and 3 generations of people, their whole families coming, and it's sanctioned by the government. Many of the clubs that we play are funded by the French government, for instance, or by the community center of the town where they're, and I realize that a lot of towns, fund symphony and opera and so forth, but it's important for kids especially to see that you can play a kind of music that's electric guitars and that rocks and is fun to play, and you don't have to be Madonna or a huge conductor to make a living doing this. You can do it at a grassroots level, and kids won't get that idea. With arts and music being cut in schools, every day, it's even more important than ever that kids realize that music at a grassroots level can be an option for a career. And I think Evan can certainly speak for being able to travel all over the world and get paid for it. It's not a bad way to make a living, but so many kids will grow up with natural talent and not realize that there's a way to use that talent.
Exactly.
So I'm all for letting kids come into bars. Watch your kids. It should be a parent's responsibility. Don't let your kids drink in the bar. Let them come in and watch the music if you're with a parent. And don't let them drink. To me it's a no-brainer, but I guess I'm probably preaching to the choir right now.
Yeah, you are to me, but there's some folks out there going to get a message out of this, I guarantee you that. I was going to ask you, do you write any of your own?
Yeah, I write most of my own stuff.
Most of your own stuff? Cool.
Yeah.
Is that easy, hard? Do you have a certain way of doing it?
Well, I think every song has its own life and its own sort of evolution. Some songs are born in a minute, just like some songs I've dreamt. I actually wrote a song here in Lincoln after spending a night at the Great Plains Motel on O Street. I wrote a song that I dreamt. And the next day I called my phone machine and recorded it on my phone machine. That's how I preserve. I now carry a small tape recorder, but I used to not have that option, so I called my phone machine and sang the song in, and it ended up on my second CD, Knockout. It was called Sharktown. That's the song that I wrote. It's not about Lincoln, it's actually about East LA, but I dreamt the riff in my head and dreamt the whole song, and it was instant. And then other songs are longer. Right now I have several different songs I'm working on in various stages of development in my head, and usually when I get down to the wire and I've got to start thinking about doing another record, which I will be thinking about doing early next year, then I'll start teaching the band the songs, and we'll work out all the bugs and until they're road ready and ready for people to hear.
Wow.
I think songwriting, like the songs I mentioned, 200 Pounds of Fun, Fit, Fat, and Fine, You Need a Great Big Woman to Show You How to Love. Songwriting is so empowering, and even if, I find a lot of great old songs that say what I want them to say, but if I can write it myself, it's much better. Sure, and it's an extra source of revenue. I have a lot of songs on different television shows. I have a song on Queer as Folk on Showtime, and on the Chris Isaak Show. I used to have a song before it was canceled. And on a show called Strong Medicine. It's on Oxygen.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And they took You Need a Great Big Woman and used it on their show. And sometimes, surprise people will use the songs in unusual ways, and that's always exciting and gives me royalty checks, so that makes me happy.
Yeah, that's a big thing. Yeah. Royalty checks, we like that.
Yeah.
Now, like I said, you're going to be at the zoo, then you're going to Omaha. What's the future hold for you? Just more touring, or is...
This year, it's a lot of touring. We'll be back in the Midwest for 3 weeks from June 8th to June 27th, and that's where Summerfest happens, Philadelphia, New York, We'll come home for a while, and then we're going to Australia. I'm going over to Israel to play. I'll be playing in Israel for 2 weeks. And then we'll come back, and then we'll probably do another East Coast or Florida run, and then probably wind it up by November and stay at home for the winter months.
Amazing.
In the winter, I try to stay home. I was here last March in Lincoln, and we had a really gnarly snowstorm. I was like, I had all kinds of, I mean, I'm a pretty good snow driver now from being here in Lincoln through a few snowstorms. I got blizzard in here twice in Lincoln and one time in Oklahoma City. And for a chick from California, it's pretty, like, you know, culture shock to be stuck in the snow.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It gives you a real profound respect for Midwesterners who are fighting that snow like that.
On a daily basis during the winter.
I mean, I had to drive in. The 80 was closed. It was so insane, that one storm. And I had to drive in on this little road, I think the 67 or some small alternative to get into Lincoln, because the 80 was closed. And we thought we would fare better taking this other road. It was the daytime. We figured things would be plowed. Well, guess what? It wasn't. And I was pulling a trailer at that time, and my car started going off into a ditch, and I knew enough not to overcorrect too much and got out of that. But it was hairy, and so now I pretty much relegate my touring in the Midwest and the East Coast to from, like, you know, late or early April or mid-April to, you know, August or September, and then I gotta stay away from
your weather season, basically.
Parts.
Yeah, that's a good choice, going from blizzards to tornadoes. That's nice.
You know, actually, tornadoes aren't as bad as.
Oh, you don't mind being chased by tornadoes?
I like the lightning and everything, and I think it's exciting. I mean, I can understand why people stay in places where there's weather, because you sort of have respect for nature when you are around that kind of weather, and we Californians get complacent because we've always got sun every day, and you know, I live near the beach, so I'm real spoiled. But I don't mind the bad weather sometimes. I mean, it's my job, so it's.
And we're glad you come up here and put up with the bad weather.
Truck drivers are doing it. I love Lincoln, actually. I used to want to buy a house here because I always thought that Lincoln was a good stopping ground, you know, because people from the musicians in the West Coast have to drive so far to start a tour in the Midwest. I mean, before I've even started a show, I've already driven 1,600 miles.
Oh yeah,
sometimes.
easily.
So I really, the houses are cheap in Lincoln, and I'm still not, you know, I still think if I get a little bit more money, I might buy myself a nice house with a big front porch out here, so that I can stay in the house when I come through and thrift store shop and do all the things I like to do in Lincoln.
Excellent.
You know?
Right.
Midwesterners are really nice and down to earth, and you don't get that as much in California and New York. People tend to be a little more, I don't know, vapid.
Yeah, that's a good word. That's a good way to describe it.